And I'm Sanika Hiroji, Membership Department Officer at IEEE SIESGST. We know that the guests were astounded after getting a look into the world of 5G and IoT following the successful conclusion of yesterday's intriguing session under the MTT-S Track. Well, now it's time to apply the concepts you learned yesterday to use in real world situations.
Now that we are back with another fascinating workshop based on the same topic, in IoT, Internet of Thieves, we'll cover methodologies for testing embedded devices, explore potential vulnerabilities in the device, and much more.
And now, for the benefit of the attendees, this session will last 90 minutes before the quiz section. We will send a link to the quiz in the chat box during the last 30 minutes. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the point system, you receive 10 points for completing the feedback form at the conclusion of each session and specific points for completing the work assigned at the end of each session. So keep an eye out for that because the winners will undoubtedly be awarded.
Now, let's begin our most awaited session and welcome our speaker for the day, Mr. Kaustubh Padwad. Kaustubh is an embedded system security researcher that focuses on IoT and product security, reverse engineering, and detecting RCE and previous issues in proprietary or closed source devices. He was the Null champion, having given hundreds of lectures at the Null Meet, and has been the Null Committee's champion for 3 years.
Hello, sir. We are thrilled to have you here today and are looking forward to a truly extraordinary session.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here and giving me a chance to present at your session.
Yes, sir. So, with great enthusiasm, we hand over the session to you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hope you are doing good. So, without wasting time, let's get started. Welcome to Offensive Embedded Exploitation, getting your hands dirty with embedded and IoT exploitation. So this talk is going to be deep technical. Also, I'd like to suggest you to have a coffee with you to keep you awake. Okay. And after the presented at 10 international conference, it's my pleasure to having you at IEEE, having me at IEEE. Okay. So agenda for this talk is we are going to have an introduction about myself and IoT. Then we will see how to prepare the arsenal, which is required, or what we say, a weapon box. And then every pen testing starts with the recognition phase that everyone know in cybersecurity. Like the more you do deep recon, the more you are able to perform well. Then in show time, we are going to touch base upon the firmware analysis, and then I will show you my case study and how I did my hand dirty and exploited the devices. And lastly, we will be touch base upon the fuzzing, reverse engineering, and exploit development. We are just touching this because this is the true deep subject in the what is it uh, device testing. Okay, so myself, I'm Kaustubh Padwad, also known as Security Beast. All exploits and all internet name works on this handle. Okay, I'm author of two dozens of exploit, and I was a security researcher at Geo Platform Limited. Now I'm working on some confidential project. Also, I'm a CNAC Red Team member. It's a group of elite hackers across the world, and I like to share my knowledge everywhere. So I gave a talk at conferences. So I'm quite a decent speaker. Okay, and let's start with the introduction of IoT. So I classified after working for years, I classified IoT in three ways. One is industrial IoT, so all industries which uses IoT, and the other is on or inside body in human IoT. So what are the key product that we use for the IoT? What are the key IoT products which we use inside the body, and also the IoT for everyone, like for others. You can see this smart cow here. The cow is also getting smart. Okay, so let's take a look at step by step in everything, in everyone. So manufacturing industries are tremendously moving and contributing to moving their infrastructure towards smart and embedded product. So let me tell you the very key example which I worked on. Everyone is aware of Amul ice cream, right? Amul ice cream is the heart of India. Okay, So they came to us and they said that, boss, we are wasting millions of business just because our ice cream is getting melted during the delivery. So what happened is, let's say if someone enters into the market of where there are the plenty of ice cream shops where they want to deliver the ice cream, what the vendor used to do, they used to open the van, keep the delivery van's ice cream freezer open, and then they started delivering. And the rest, the melted ice cream, no one accepts it, right? Even not even us. So we developed one small product for them, and that product was working in such a way that how much time it is required to take the box for out from the freezer and to close the door. So whenever some delivery guys keep open the freezer, it used to send the alert to their manager that, yeah, these guys kept open freezer door open for benchmark time, over the benchmark time, and now the ice cream starts melting. So with the small investment of, let's say, 50,000 bucks, they were able to save the millions every month. Okay, so that was the manufacturing case study. Also, there are plenty of manufacturing case studies out there, but this was the most relevant example which everyone can relate. Government is also moving towards the smart IoT. So the case study for this, like why government is moving and why government should move to the IoT, is we have a street lights in our city everywhere, right? So what happened is, in evening they start the street light till the morning time. Okay, so it consumes a lots of electricity. When we thought this as a individual or our personal home light, it's not going to be definitely impacting and worth doing a research. But when it comes to the street light of city, okay, the estimated billing amount for the street light, just for the tube street light, was around 2 billion INRs for the government. Now, with a quick, there is a one narrowband IoT concept is there. It's called NB-IoT, which works without the IP network. So it's quite advanced. So the company called Quictel have developed one small chip which which they put it in a street light. Okay, so street light will only start when there is some pass by or when someone is passing to that road, then only. So from 2 billion, they come to the electricity bill reduced from 2 billion to 1.5 billion. It was presented by Quictel. So we can see there are plenty of use cases of IoT in smart government, right? And the mobility and Wi-Fi is the key component for the IoT, because they are the one who is providing us the connectivity for everything, like the connectivity for narrowband IoT, connectivity for LTE IoT. You sometimes you might be wondering that on Amazon they sell a product called watch your bike wherever, track your bike wherever it is. So how they work? They just put a SIM card in that device. That SIM card gives the internet connectivity to that small modem, and through which they send the data to their IoT platform, and from that platform you are able to see the streams on your app, whatever the app it is. Okay, digital citizens, like we are getting smart. We are using wearables. We have iWatch. We have Android Watch. We are using Android. It's the one of the most used device. Okay, and plenty of devices we have. Like we use CCTV cameras in our day to day. And someone might be using Alexa controlled home at their home itself, cleaning robots, and plenty of applications that that citizens are using. Health is really key component for the IoT, because now we were working on some project for smart ambulance. So everyone is familiar with how brutal the JVLR traffic is or way traffic is, right? So if some critical patient is traveling to ambulance, it's gonna be a really nightmare for them if he's traveling to the Western Express Highway or JVLR or even sometimes Eastern Expressway. So what we are working on, it will be a smart ambulance. So whenever the patient enter inside the ambulance, he will be connected with some equipments, IoT based equipment, and that will be sending the real time data to the doctor. So what doctor can see all his vitals, and if instant treatment is required, he can treat the remotely. So that's like a mind blowing thing for the IoT and for the health sector itself. And for the agriculture, in India, there is a concept called the load shedding. So sometimes the power goes out for 6 hours and 8 hours in the village side. So what they do is someone developed a chip, small chip, So whenever the soil is dry enough and you have electricity, it will automatically turn on the vent pump or motor pump, and it will gives the water to required area. Even in addition to this, I recently checked something called the vertical farming. So where there is a no black soil and they still want to do the farming, so what they do, they put a rack, like a big racks. In that racks, they put lights from Philips lumen light and some air conditioner, some water sprinkler, and there is a big company, I don't want to name it now, who is working on this smart agriculture thing. So what it will do, indoor they will manage the artificial light, artificial water is not artificial, of course, the water requirement and also temperature. So based on the room temperature, based on the dryness, and based on the few parameters, it will automatically turn on the water and control the light intensity. So how much light is required to grow up the plant. So it's whole indoor planting, and they are rocking now. Like, so agriculture is getting smart. Smart building is the, like, you can see everywhere. So if you enter if you enter some smart building or some advanced or some recent building, you were able to see the light will turn on only when you enter in the conference room, right? Rest of the time it will turn off. Then the air temperature, like air conditioner, also turns on when the someone is there in the room or certain temperature triggers. Then also you have seen that in washrooms the water only dispose when your hands is there, when you can see the sensors. So building is the key element. In next slide I'm going to show you the whole building automatically managed by IoT. Okay, so energy smart grid is also, they are working on, like they are working the PLCs, and everything is getting controlled by IoT. So no need to go to every station and check whether PLC is working or not. And also I had a recent test case where everyone have an electric meter at their home, right? So you remember when you don't pay a bill and when your grace period get exceeded, the guy came from the electricity board and cut the wires, and then again you have to go there and you have to pay him 300 for extra connection, and then he come again and connect to this, right? So now they are working on the smart meter. So whenever you didn't pay a bill, they will from there sitting at the computer, they will directly turn off your light, and whenever you pay the bill and fines, they will automatically turn on from there. So no need to go to office and bring the man to your home and please do reconnection and all stuff. Okay, and for transportation, you know who is the king, right? Tesla. Tesla is the ultimate king of transportation. He's doing the whole car automated, right? Now, in human IoT, so this is for industry. So you will see, I try to cover all industries, but everywhere you see the IoT is there and it's booming. Like we are also working on smart cities, blockchains, and to integrate all this stuff with that. Okay, now let's focus on the inhuman IoT. So this is something very crucial. Like in the cybersecurity posture, the most critical thing is the life, or in overall thing, the life is the most key element for everyone. So if you are alive, then only you are going to secure, right? If you are dead, then nobody gives damn about whether your Facebook is hacked or Instagram is hacked or someone, right? The security comes before the life comes before security. So this instrument, you can see the insulin pumps, the pacemakers, the brain neurosimulators, gastric simulators. These all products are now putting inside the body of human, and those are for the purpose, like the pacemakers, we know it's for the heartbeat management, and the insulin pumps, let's say you have a small kid who have some diabetes, type 1, type 2, whatever, and he have to take the medicines regularly. But if you are not there to take care, like we are working, we are in a busy city, so what you can do is, like, you can keep this product inside the body and it will automatically keep triggering the insulin to the body. Okay, so this kind of products which are super critical from my perspective of hacking. So if you are able to hack this, it's gonna be nightmare. And you might be wondering why cow is there, right? Smart cow. Okay, holy cow, smart cow. So the cow is there because few companies are working on some projects called smart belts. So that belts will be around the neck of the your lovely pet, and the pets trigger some patterns. So if you have a little dog, right, and if you keep him at some unknown place, So what he does, he start looking left, right, up, down, and might be rolling to himself. And so this is called the patterns, right? So if he have a fever, how he behaves, this is called the pattern. So what that smart belt is going to do, it is going to identify the pattern, and then based on that pattern, it is going to send a notification to your mobile that yeah, your pet is lost or your pet is having fever. So this is how they are working on, like, farming is farming and animals are like a key component of India, right? We produce the highest milk across the globe. So IoT is taking care of this thing also, like the smart castle, the project I worked on. Okay, so it will take care of everything, like even their food, their pattern, their behavior, how it's going. So you can see IoT is like a great power. So as everyone knows, Spider-Man, great power comes with a great responsibility, right? So before checking the responsibilities, let's take a look at the hotel. This hotel is completely managed by IoT. Yeah. So as you can see here, the whole hotel was getting managed by the IoT product. So like your check-in will be self, your room management will be self, all robots who is serving you and everything, right? So with the great power, great responsibilities come. So I want to show you some security risk along with the IoT product and why the security for IoT is important. Okay, so this is like the most dangerous thing, as I said. So I don't know, maybe you have heard or not, but there is a story our grandparents used to tell us that there is a witchcraft, black magic. Some people kills you remotely without knowing anything. You just say the name and they will kill you, right? So I don't believe on that stuff. I don't know even they exist or not. But yeah, with IoT you can do a witchcraft. Now, just imagine what it says that medicine pumps and pacemaker threat as a doctor simulated hacked overdose, right? So our heartbeat average rate is 62 to 70 beats per minute, right? So now just imagine if I said 3,000 heartbeat per minute, that will be the biggest cardiac arrest, right? No one can save you. All you need to do is just hack one pacemaker and you are able to kill anyone, right? This talk is for educational purpose. Disclaimer. Okay. So it's a risky. Whenever the machines come inside the human, it's risky. Okay. Now, hackers break into smart home, play inappropriate music, and communicate with the resident via camera. So you buy a product to clean your house. Now hackers control it, and they are using it to spy on you. Horrible nightmare, right? Playing up inappropriate music. One can imagine the wildest, right? And this is the industry grade attack. So I don't know how many of you knows about Mirai, but Mirai is the biggest IoT botnet attack. They have the army of billions of devices which can kill anyone, not physically, logically. Okay. So now they have discovered called OMG Mirai based bot turns into IoT proxy servers. Okay. Yeah, this is also like I always like this. I always feel like somebody is watching me. This camera was you brought this to monitor yourself or your loved ones at your home when you're not there. But this camera is always listening and sending the audio streams to some Chinese server. Don't know what they want to do with us, but It's okay. Like they were listening to all audio. So wherever this camera is present, they are listening to you. No comments. It's the biggest company and biggest product. The biggest employees said that he turns on of the Alexa. So also he is like threatened that Alexa might be listening to him. And this again, 500,000 pacemakers was recalled by FDA. Right. It is the same threat. You can't even imagine the criticalness of this. Okay. So my test case is quite decent. Okay, my test case for IoT or securing the IoT is, can this decent looking IP phone change into a botnet? Right. So botnet is a network or it's a chain of devices or the computers which you can control across the globe. Okay, and this IP phone, everyone knows that BPO, KPO, or organizations, large enterprise, small companies, everywhere you will see IP phone to call to do the intercalling. So how the IP phone is connected? Right, it's just with a LAN cable, simple LAN cable. Okay. Now, let's say if you hack this IP phone and let's say you have a control of this IP phone, what you are going to do? Right. I'll tell you what how brutal it is. Now, let's say every organization or large enterprise, you will see a 20,000 to 80,000 users. Okay, and or maybe 1 lakh user if you see 1 million user. Okay, now this IP phone have multiple vendors, so it's not just Cisco is manufacturing the IP phones. There are plenty of companies who manufactures the vendor. Now, if you take one IP phone or let's say one brand with one specific operating system or firmware running on it, if you take that one for this research, and now that IP phone itself, you will find a 1 million IP phone at least in Mumbai or a small region of Mumbai. Okay, or organization could have 1 million IP phone. So when you now let's think about you're targeting the multiple organizations, including BPO, KPO, right? So in Mumbai itself, I think it's going to be 10 million IP phones in Mumbai itself, right? There are this many users and like so many IP phones are there with one brand. Okay, so when you target the group of organizations across the city or across the state, how much it would be? Around 50 millions approximately, or it's too big? Okay, so if you target a whole country, including Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and let's say whole India, it's gonna be 1 billion, right? So when you target an organization, you have this many IP phones. When you target a group of organization, that's when whole city or whole state, you have this many IP phones. And when you target a city of organizations like a whole India, so I believe 1 billion IP phone will be there with you. Now assume that if I say 1 billion IP phone or maybe more than that, or let's stick to 1 billion. I say that to the 1 billion IP phone that you hit the facebook.com. Will it going to survive 10 requests per second into 1 billion? It's gonna be 10 billion requests per second. I bet any server can get killed. Either it's a Facebook, Google, or anything. Or you can plant a DDoS attack to anyone, distributed denial of service to anyone in this whole world, and no one can survive this. Similar way, the Mirai does the same. Okay, it's an army of botnet. Okay, now let's see how it's going to be, whether it's possible or not, and if yes, then how it's going to be. Okay, so before we start, whenever I did this talk, everyone is like, I want to enter into the IoT, but I don't have the resources or I don't have the funds to get the devices for hardware hacking. And they treat it like a super hype that it's going to be a rocket science. You are building a rocket and sending satellites to the space. But trust me, it's not that hard. So I categorize this into two setup. One is basic setup and one is advanced setup. So let's take a look at basic setup, how much money you need and how much, like what are the tools you need. So you need the Linux first. You can use this Kali Linux or you can use the any other Linux. Now why Linux? Windows users might get offended. So Linux gives you some information, at least some information after connecting the device to the operating system. If you open the D message, you will find some vendor ID, some profile ID, or something. Like, unlike Windows, will say unknown device, and that's all. So you will be not able to identify when you connect the unrecognized device to the Windows unless you have a driver. Okay, but Linux will give you the lowest level of access to the operating system. Now the other use case is like the whole IoT world runs on the two processor architecture. It's not always x86 and 64. It works on the ARM, and the MIPS, because this architecture are called the RISC, not the CISC. Our architecture with x86 and 64 is going to be CISC, complex instruction set computing. But these devices doesn't have to do plenty of operations. It have specific job. Yeah, I have to watch you, I have to watch you. The camera will know only I have to watch you, unlike someone coded and say I have to listen to you also. But it's still two jobs, right? So you don't need a CIC computing to huge power of computing to do this. So they use the RISC, reduced instruction computing set, to perform a limited operations. So this CISC architecture, when you try to simulate on the x86 or 64, it's a really pain in it's really pain. Okay, so what users do generally, we use the QEMU framework to virtualize the architecture of ARM or MIPS on the x64 computer. So the integration of QEMU, ARM, and MIPS is super smooth with the Linux. So though you have to do some job, but it's not difficult. Like you cannot even do it on Windows. And the file systems which is supported by the IoT is like, you might be heard of NTFS, EXTFAT, and EXT1234, RazorFS, but this file system doesn't work on the IoT world. They use CramFS, SquashFS, ExtraFS, and plenty of this operating system. There are 20, 30 specific file systems that they use. To unpack those file systems, you need to have the capacity, you need to have the tool to open it, and that tool runs smoothly on the Linux because of the open source communication. Okay, and the plenty of forum support for everything on Linux. So you will never end up using Microsoft.com and knowledgebase.microsoft.com and see, oh, this I am also facing the same problem. You will get a solution on Debian website or forum like Stack Overflow. Now the second one is the JTagulator. So JTagulator, this is the device developed by one of the greatest hacker in IoT world. Okay, so to give you a brief, what JTag is the de facto standards for the quality testing of the products. Let's say any mobile company or any small product, we can target a small product here. uh, let's say a smart camera, or yeah, smart camera. Let's say the smart camera is on the assembly line. Okay, now assembly line, once the product is finished, now they are producing millions and billions of cameras for everyone, right? A Hikvision or any brand, you name it. So uh, before it have to get handover to the customer, what one have to check whether it is working fine or not, right? On the Apple, we see QA pass on Apple Fruit. Similarly, you see QA pass sign on all the products which are present, right? So that QA pass is quality assessment pass, and that how these billions of devices are getting quality control because of JTAG. So what they do, they load the test case, they use the JTAG, and they check all the functionalities of device using JTAG. So JTAG is the de facto standard for product testing. So that's why they keep it there. And the JTAG is our best friend. When you didn't find any way to interact with device, we use the JTagulator to interact with device. And JTAG pins you might not able to see, but points is definitely there. So JTagulator is the one of the most important thing. And the API motive. So when the IoT comes in a picture, what we think that everything should be wireless. So you might have seen that sensors which is turning on the light, turning off the light. It works on the Z wave or ZigBee protocol. Okay, so to intercept these waves, to see these waves, we have to use the API motive or any SDN for that matter. But API motive is the ready-made manufactured SDN for us, software defined network for us. It works on RF. Okay, It works on Zigbee also. And the connectors, seriously, your life. So this connectors, I have shortlisted the very basic connectors which is required. Here you can see the alpha card. It's an additional Wi-Fi card for the hackers. The one USB to LAN port, because we need additional LAN port for setting up bridges and MITM. This device is called Uberetooth. It's a powerful Bluetooth controller where you can intercept, replay, and reproduce the Bluetooth based attack. Screwdriver kit, of course, you know why we need it to open the products. And this connector is called Shkira. The Shkira connector supports, it's called the all-in-one connector, which supports multiple, like it connects to SPI, it connects to I2C, it connects to UART, and so many. So it's 4-in-1 connector. It also supports JTAG. Okay. And lastly, the HackRF. So HackRF is also a golden box for hacking RF frequencies nearby. So this whole setup is less than 50,000. So anyone can buy it. Like it's not a big deal that buying this, right? So 50,000 bucks, or maybe you don't need this all. You can buy based on your requirements, right? Less than 50,000, you are all set to set up your basic lab for pen testing IoT devices. Now let's see how advanced lab looks like. Yeah. So this is the advanced lab. I take this snip from the Black Hat Hackers, Black Hat presentation long back in 18. I love this setup. And trust me, there is no limitation for advanced lab. So you don't need to bother it. As devices will come, you have to buy the connectors. Sometimes you have to build the connectors. Sometimes you have to keep the cables and yeah, like plenty of test case. So whatever the communication device support, you have to act accordingly and you have to get your lab done. Okay, so we have done with hardware what we need. Now, what softwares do we need? Are they expensive? Are they proprietary? Are they going to cost a license super expensive? No. I call it a weapons. So we need a binwalk. It's by the Craig Hefner, our Dave TTYS guy, one of the best hacker in the hardware and IoT hacking. His handle is like Dave TTYS on Twitter. You can follow him. He's a very best hacker. He developed one tool called the binwalk. So binwalk is a binary walk, and I call it as a universal opener for any file system. So when we are going to jump on the firmware, you will understand this in a better way. So firmware is packed in a different archive, like we use what RAR or Zip or 7Z. So these firmwares are getting packed in like Squash FS, SAS Squash FS, and Cram FS. That OS needs to open using binwalk. Okay, so for that we need a software binwalk. It's open source. It's freely available on GitHub. You don't need to spend a penny for this. Okay, now the Formadine. There was a researcher on GitHub called DLCC. That guy is like craziest guy I ever seen in my life. So he is like a psycho scientist. So he developed this software called Formadine. So Formadine is the set of softwares which used to emulate the firmware. Let's say you got a firmware for some product, but you don't have a product, but you have to test the firmware. So what you will do? You will try to emulate it using QMove and customize kernel, customize init RAM FS, customize devices, customize device set. Everything is built in Formadine. It's also open source. It's a tedious task to set up that, but yeah, trust me. Like if you are planning to build from scratch to Formadine level, it's gonna take you at least 5 years to build such a framework. So it's a ready-made framework available for emulating the uh, firmwares. It's a ready-made framework available to emulate the firmware. Okay. Burpsuit Community Edition is available. You can use this. You don't need to buy a paid software. Burpsuit is a proxy tool. Also, alternative to that, you can use the Zap proxy or something. And Python. So in IoT, you need a lot of patience because you have to repeatedly test few test cases multiple times. So you need a Python to automate this. And the last one is the most expensive software, $20,000 per year. So, but you don't need to worry about it because the alternative for this is NSA Hydra. You can use it, or the you can use, if you want to become a master, you can use the Radar A2. So this software is used for reverse engineering, and reverse engineering is the key element in IoT testing. If you don't know how to reverse engineer, then you can't do IoT testing. So you have to learn it step by step. It is the most difficult thing I'm learning since 10 years. I still call me as a level 1 reverse engineer because It's like converting the compiled code into the binaries and assembly and reading assembly and connecting dots, and most of the time the decompilers or debuggers doesn't work well. So yeah, but reverse engineering is the key element. So why we do reverse engineer? To identify the backdoor account, to identify the system critical vulnerabilities, to identify the code execution vulnerabilities. For that, because we don't have a source code to read and do a so secure source code review, we have to compile the binary, and we have to reverse engineer it in order to identify the vulnerabilities. Okay, and the backdoor. So many products are coming with a backdoor. They I don't know, man, where they store this much of data, but they do the backdooring. They do access our personal stuff without our consent, without knowing us. Okay, so to identify such kind of vulnerabilities, we need a reverse engineering software, and IDA Pro is undoubtedly the champion for reverse engineering. Okay, I hope we are good till now. Uh, we are going to have a Q&A after this session. Now the recognition. So as I told you before, the key component for pen testing is the recognition. The more you do recon, the more you will find the attack surface, and that attack surface you can use for your pen testing or the exploitation. So in IoT, what I did is I categorized this recognition phase into two phases. One is the active recon, when you connect the device and try to identify the potential entry points to device, and second is the passive recon. So in IoT testing, the passive recon is the key element, one of the key element for getting successful, getting the more information about the product. So let's see what it is. So few things I would like to say. First, read the documents of the product. So product specification, whatever the product specification you have to read it. Based on it, you are able to understand what this product is about and how this product is going to work, and how this product is going to support what kind of communication. As you can see, for the IP phone, I take a snippet for the protocols what it supports. So you see SIP version 2, like you see TCP. Also, you see this STUN, SDP, ARP, SNTP, TFTP, HTTP, HTTPS, and auto provisioning, and TR069, 98.111 and 104, and also it supports SNMP version 2. Now, based on this, you know that this product doesn't support secure SIP like SIP version 3 or secure SIP. Also, secure RTP, it is not supported by this product. So let's say if your manager tomorrow, when you will get employed, and when you were working hard for a company, so when your manager is talking about when your team lead is talking to your manager regarding your promotion, you can simply sit between their communication and intercept the communication, and you can listen it, right? Because it's not a secure SIP and secure RTP, right? And using HTTP, now you know that the small IP phone have web server running on it, and you have a web interface. You can access the website on that IP phone, right? Also, TR069 is the industry grade protocol used to provision or used to configure the device remotely. And the SNMP version 2 is like SNMP we know, right? Simple Network Management Protocol version 2. It means it doesn't support SNMP v3. It means it is key based. You can brute force and access the data of IP phone by abusing the key inside the IP phone. Most of the time, you will find the community key. Okay, and you have to stick to this logo. I want more. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be satisfied while performing pen test of IP phone. So you have to ask them for the Mitrokin archive for them. Okay. Now also the user manuals, we have to read it. When you buy one product for pen testing, you also have to read the user manual, because it reveals a lot of information, such as it says that the firmware for this product is upgradable. It have a web management interface, so you can manage this using web page. Also, it have password management. So this make you think that if the product have only one account, then why you need a password management? So that means you can see that there could be potentially multiple accounts. Also, it supports the remote syslog, logging to the remote server. auto provisioning using TFTP, HTTP, and HTTPS. So you can access the web interface on HTTP, also HTTPS. SMTP, time synchronization, okay. SNTP, secure NTP, time synchronization, and multiple user level. As we discussed here, it have the multiple user and supports TR069 management mode. So this data you will get from the user management. Okay. Now algorithms. So this is the again important aspect for securing the IoT product. So now you might be wondering that what we have to do with the algorithm, right? They are doing their job, they are good, we don't want to bother them, they are happy enjoying the calculations. So what algorithm does and why algorithm is used, I'll give you one basic example. The exploits for this is available in market. So there were Belkin routers in the market for quite a long time. So what they do is like the manufacturing of router is like definitely we have to manufacture the router in billions. Like every end user have one router. Some users have two, three routers. Some fancy guys want to show that four antennas, so they buy again more routers at home. Okay, and some office needs router, everyone needs router, right? So this router was manufactured by Belkin. What they does is they and now as per the device security standard, you have to keep the unique password or unique SSID for the router. So if you buy some router from market, let's say eyeball router or TP-Link, our cheapest and poorest friend, or Tenda, or any router you buy this, or even Linksys, when it turns on, it pops up with a new SSID. It's not always like eyeball router, right? It's eyeball underscore something something, eyeball 5G underscore something something, or TP-Link underscore something something. So these SSIDs are unique as per device practice. And to access this SSID, when you connect to the router using Wi-Fi SSID, Wi-Fi password, you will see once one very long strange password there, right? It looks super complicated. One have to hold the router, hey, hold router like this, and he's pronouncing all words small capital, and you're typing to connect for the first time. And of course then later you change it to your name or your family member name or your lovely pet name or maybe your girlfriend name, right? The Wi-Fi passwords. So this password, the first password was generated by the algorithm. It's not like a human is typing password. Yeah, let me type something and I will use this as a password, right? These passwords are generated by the algorithm. Now imagine that if you crack the algorithm to generate a password, imagine the risk. So the default password, whomsoever like to use the default password, as they might be someone like intellectual, might be thinking that yeah, this is the complex password and no one can connect to my Wi-Fi if the authentication is WPA2, because the password is so bad that I myself can't even remember every time I have to go. I may note down somewhere or share the QR code. Okay, so these passwords are generated by the algorithm. Now, if you crack the algorithm to generate a password, you can connect to any router. So this also happened to the the first one. I forgot the name, man. Shit. Belkin routers. Okay, so they had a poor mechanism to generate the password. Sometimes what they do is like MAC address, like first four digit of MAC address plus last four digit of serial number, that is your password. Or sometimes they take a MAC address and run some MD5 or SHA hash on it, and that hash is your password. So this becomes super easy for hackers to hack your device when you crack the algorithm. And magic numbers. Okay, so I bet everyone who is watching these streams knows one magic number at least in their life. It's called star hash 06 hash. When you enter this number on keypad, it pops up the IMEI. Okay, so now take an example of what magic number and this magic is doing here. Whenever you buy a product and whenever that product is not working, you go to service center, give the guy that service center guy, yeah, bro, this is not working. I'm not able to turn it on, or I'm not able to see the display screen, or I'm not able to see whatever the management interface you have. He just do some tick 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 and he will give you back without opening the device. So how it happens? There are modes in the products which is called the engineering modes. So those modes and those features or will only get activated when you enter some magic codes or magic URL. Then only it will get open. So it's called a rescue mission. Whenever you go to the service guys, service center guys have some magic number. If you type Apple magic number, you will see plenty of Apple magic number which opens the GUI, Or yeah, one very nice example. So have you tried to purchase a mobile from Flipkart e-commerce with a replacement? The guy comes and types some codes and it opens a weird menu in your phone and he check everything. So the QA magic number. So this kind of magic numbers are there. So you have to ask the product owner that what are the magic numbers or what are the secret waves or secret codes you have to open the debugging interface for the devices. Okay, and lastly, the user documentation. You can see the default PC port connection type is bridge. Default username, default name of admin is admin. Default username is user. Super strong product, man. And the default password is null. They don't give a damn about keeping a password. And here you can see the web login port also, right? So this is something. This is called the passive recon. So the more passive recon you does, the more you are able to see this. Okay. So also one important aspect here is like the FCC ID. So you might be seeing the C, capital C, like this, and E with the same format on the product. You can check it on your phone, it will be there. You can check it on your router, it will be there. Everywhere you are able to see that CE code. It's called the FCC ID. So whenever the renowned vendor creates a product, he have to register with the FCC database, and that with the FCC database, he have to uh, precisely says that what are the functionalities that this product supports. So in one test case, when I was testing one product, they said that this product does not support Wi-Fi, and I was like, okay, good. Then we started pen testing it. I started reading manual about it with the FCC ID, and when I searched for the FCC ID, they were showing that this product supports Wi-Fi. And this guy was like, no, 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 man, you turn it on and I'll show you. So it went a heated argument, and I took it personally and I said, I'm going to turn the Wi-Fi on. So later, after doing plenty of research on that product, I come to know that these guys have modified the firmware for hours, and this firmware don't have the Wi-Fi driver. That's why the and host APD binary. That's why it's not able to turn on the WPS applicant on the device, which was by which they are not able to connect to Wi-Fi. Then I reverse engineer the whole firmware. I load the driver inside the firmware. The firmware signing was missing, and then repack and create a custom firmware and turns on the Wi-Fi on that. And then he was like, "Oh, we don't know, man. It have Wi-Fi." Oh, I was like, "Oh, you don't know your own kid." Like, so this kind of scenes happen in the IoT security testing. So FCC ID is the key element you have to read about it. Okay, it gives you a lot of information. Okay, now active recon. So once you're done with this, you will get a real better understanding that what this product is, how this product is, and how this is, what modes and what things this product is going to support. Okay. So once you have enough information, then you start doing a active recon. So what is active recon? First is knowing the product, and second is if you are able to make a connection between your computer to your product, then run the commands. So whenever you do nmap, I hope nmap everyone is aware. It's not the network mapper. It just stands for the open port on the products or computer. Okay. So whenever you do nmap for this, you make sure that you are scanning for UDP ports, TCP ports, STCP port, and all kind of ports. As you can see here, there are it's a snippet from one of my testing. You see 415652325513804046. So generally, you don't find this open ports on the normal computer or normal networking or normal pen testing. So here I am able to discover the remote crash. So whenever I sent some malicious request on this port, the device was able to crash. I reported this to Nokia. The exploit is available online. So if you want to do, so Nokia, it was a small phone from Nokia. I think I have it. Yeah, yeah. This was the phone where the exploit is published, and this was the phone which I had tested. Okay, so if this phone is connected to Wi-Fi on the network, you just send one request, or if you just want to have fun, just broadcast the exploit to everywhere on the IP network, public IP. Definitely, someone is going to crash. Okay, and here it's not visible. Yeah, I should have taken a photo of this. But here you can see there is a CE written. I know it's not visible, but that CE stands for the FCC ID. So to hack this device, you need to read about this on the FCC database. Okay, so plenty of things for hacking. And active recon, you just do this and does port on does a ports do a port scanning on all port kind of stuff. Okay. Now, the most important aspect of the active recognition is to know your device. You should know what this device is and how this device supports. Okay, so what kind of connectors you have heard till now? What kind of connectivities you have heard till now? I bet it's like you might be heard of a serial communication connecting that nine pin connectors. You might be heard of ADB you for using your Android phone, ADB Connect or ADB Shell. You might be heard of uh, LAN, definitely LAN cables. You might be heard of WAN cables. Okay, these are like a quite a standard communication which we have. So if you see this phone supports Wi-Fi, so also we can interact this with the Wi-Fi. Also, you can see the LAN port here. So we can connect to this phone using LAN port. Here is the small RJ11. So we can connect to this phone via RJ11 also. Okay, but this communication modes are like normal for this phone. So like if you get a connectivity to this using LAN or WAN, you are happy. You are happy to pen test it. But the more if you go in more advanced or more small devices, which is coming with IoT, it supports a narrowband IoT. It supports a NIDD network. So it's like I still don't even understand. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Here you can see the CE, right? The CE stands for the FCC ID. So if you enter this, I don't know whether this image is clear. Oh, it's not clear. Okay. So this CE, you might have seen on all products. Maybe any product you have, you can check this out. Okay. So that is FCC ID. When you enter the FCC ID on the FCC ID database, you will find up all these details, even how thick it is, how to open this, how many screws it have, everything. Okay. So yeah, in IoT there is a NIDD network, non-IP data delivery network. God knows only how it works. Okay, it's called the narrowband IoT, which is like a 8-bit packet transmission. Now we can transmit a lot, but they are still like happy with this small connectivity. And ADB, serial, UART, JTAG, SPI, I2C, this kind of connectors, which you don't see in a general life, but it is used in IoT. So let's say if someone make a rug device or someone make a brick device that no one can connect to my device, even he was so bad that he removes the JTAG also after production. So there is a way called the I2C chip dump. So what we will do, we take the ICs out of it and we will read the direct data from that IC and dump the software inside it for dump the firmware inside it for pen testing. Okay. So knowing your device is the key element, because to start testing, we have to know our device, how it is, right? So this is a part of recognition. Okay. Any question, please note it down somewhere. I'm going to answer it when Q&A start. Okay. So this is the part of recognition phase. Now, once you have enough recon, you know pretty much that this small device have the web server, this small device have the network connectivity, this small device have SNMP. That means it is must running some operating system. Okay. Now, I'd like to show you the our next session, next pack in agenda to before we start the pen testing of device. Okay, the key component in embedded system is the firmware. So, what is firmware? So, firmware is just the operating system. But we call it firmware for embedded system. So, like we have a Windows operating system, we have Linux operating system, we have a firmware here. But the firmware is the uh, firmware is the okay, agenda is like what is firmware, how to obtain the firmware, how to unpack the firmware, and what to look inside the firmware. Okay, so what is firmware? Firmware is the file which contains the below thing, the file system. Okay, we know what file system is. So if you open the Linux, we call the root fs, root file system. It's slash etc, usr, dev, proc, sys, mon, and var, opt. This we call a file system. Okay, it contains the kernel for booting the operating system, and very rare time it contains the bootloader. Okay, because the bootloader is the key element in IoT security, because the bootloader ensures the firmware which is going to load. So if we say the secure firmware, or if we say the secure bootloader, so you might have seen that, bro, this phone is not rooting, we have enabled the secure boot. And some phone are so bad as that they have a true secure boot which is hard coded inside the hardware. Or some medical devices, for example pacemaker. Tomorrow if I build an exploit which through which if I remotely able to set the heartbeat of someone, okay, so and that software, if I want to, that the software which I'm going to make or with the exploit, it's called the firmware, which is going to install on the pacemaker. But with the secure boot, what happens is like the integrity of the firmware is tested while booting the device and while installing the software. So the malicious firmware you cannot flash into the device and boot with that because of this secure boot enablement. Okay, enablement. So okay, Uh, so secure boot is the secure boot ensures the firmware integrity. Okay, so that's why bootloader does not contains in most of the time in firmware, but sometimes yes, when there is a bug in the secure boot itself, like they are using U-boot, traditional U-boot without any security. Now someone like me or someone like a good researcher in the industry does a pen test and say your boss, your device does not support the secure boot, so you have to deliver the bootloader using firmware in your next upgrade. So that firmware, that device will get calls back, and with the new firmware they will implement the bootloader inside the firmware. Okay, so these three components are there in the firmware. Now how can you obtain the firmware? First, download from this site. So if you see download, here I have Wi phone IPC 622 whatever the model, and here is the firmware. You click download, you will get a firmware. But it's not always easy. Okay, some vendors give you, but the firmware, yeah, also the firmware can be encrypted whenever you download, so it's not easy. But yeah, most of the time you can find it on the website. Now obtaining form update. So you might have seen that notification every time on your phone, the phone update is available, phone update is available, like Windows update is available. So during that update, you do just download this option, download only and not install, and get a ADB, on your rooted phone, and download that file and get it. Now, extracting from device is like I told you, like last time, when with the JTAG or with I2C, you can dump the firmware easily. Or if you have a root shell over the product, or a root shell over the IoT device, you can simply do tar hyphen CVF and all the partitions it have, etc, usr mon, and create it as a rootfs.tar.gz, and extract it back from the device. Okay, and Google Doc, like index of FTP of kind of Google Docs is pretty much useful when you want to download something. And the analyzing device traffic. So what we does most of the sometimes is like we set up a bridge between the device and the internet. So that bridge is supposed to intercept all the traffic. Also, it is possible on wireless using a Raspberry Pi. You set up some small Pi hole which will download all the data. Okay. So when you click check for update, it sends the update check request to the vendor. Vendor says, yeah, update is available, and during that transmission, you start dumping the traffic. So you will get the firmware. Okay. So this is like how to get the firmware and what is the firmware for IoT. Now, firmware analysis. What to firmware analysis to? How now you got a firmware. Now what? Run binmock-e small e to extract everything? No, that is the lamest way, because firmware is two types of firmware there. One is called the full firmware, which is rare to get. Another is the delta firmware. Delta firmware is the change between X and Y. Okay, so now take a real-time example. You have a phone, Samsung, iPhone, or maybe Oppo, Vivo, anything. Now your phone operating system is of 2 to 3 GB. When you buy a 64 GB phone, you will have only 60 GB space left for your personal use, because 4 GB is used by operating system. Now the vulnerability comes in that model. Like Google always release the patch, and with that patch, that vulnerability applicable to your phone, and vendor have to develop the patch, and that patch needs to deliver. So, is it a good idea to share the whole 3.5 GB firmware to your device? No, right? Downloading 3 GB is pain every day with every update. So what they do, they create a file 600 MB or maybe 200 MB or maybe less than that. It is the exact change which needs to place there, like updating driver, patching driver, updating software, like the software which is running like DNS mask or host APD or this kind of software which is running on your phone. This needs to get patched. Okay, so this patch, the Delta firmware consists of those patches, and then this patch sends to the device, and then device install the patch in a certain manner. It has some XML mapping to how to install and how to configure it. Okay, so and also firmware get delivers in two format. One is encrypted firmware, and another is the compressed firmware. So firmware is compressed, you are more than lucky because you can uncompress the firmware, irrespective of what file system it is using. But with the encrypted firmware, you run out of your luck because because to decrypt the firmware, you must have the logic or the keys to decrypt the firmware. As you can see here, one of the secured firmware, it's from Cisco. I did the entropy analysis. So, and whenever you get the firmware, do the entropy analysis using binwalk hyphen capital E, not small e. Small e is for extraction. So, in entropy analysis, if this is 1 or if this is above 8, it's beyond the compression, it's encrypted. But you can see this part and this part and this part. It's not extra. It's not encrypted. So what you do, you map the whole file system structure of the firmware, then you dump exact this part or this part or this part, which is unencrypted using DD. DD is like famous Linux tool. Sometimes you can read the firmware in hexdump. You may find the password. Once I found a private key here in this firmware, and using that private key, I was able to decrypt the firmware, which was packed. Maybe it was their initial implementation. And also, you can perform a signature analysis based on like what file system it is supporting, what kind of device, what kind of underlying operating system it have, and plenty of things. And binwalk hyphen e, like entropy analysis, right? Yeah. Okay, I forgot to tell you something in the reconnaissance section. I just remember when I was doing this. So it's like, in most of the embedded system, along with the in passive recon or in active recon, you were able to identify the operating system which is running on it, underlying operating system. So if you see the router, that router may be running underlying operating system, could be a Linux or could be RTOS or could be Android, whatever it is. So like your TV, Android TV. Why we call it Android TV? Because it is based on the Android operating system, right? The TCL and Falcon, I heard that they are developing the Linux-based TVs. I don't know why, but yeah. So those are Linux-based devices. So underlying, you will either find a Linux or the Android and Windows, but very rare. I haven't seen in my career till now. Yeah, I've seen it once, but very rare. Like most of the time, it's Linux or Android. Android is coming very brutally. And also, they uses the binary called BusyBox to utilize the kernel from that small binary, to utilize the initial RAM disk from that binary, and to get the basic OS support from that binary. Okay, so that also you can obtain from the firmware, what it is. Okay. So, what to look inside the firmware? Once you got the firmware, you get access to document root. You get access to the passwords. So, to access this device, like a passwd file, you get access to the executable binaries. You get the access to the secret codes and APIs or secret APIs which you can access later for pen testing. Okay, so this kind of component you can start looking in the firmware. So there is also one talk on the whole training of 2.5 hours for this talk available on YouTube for DEFCON channel. Okay, that is quite deep manner if you want to understand this in more deep way. Okay, So now getting hands dirty. Okay, now you if you are with the flow, now you understand what is the product, you understand how to identify and analyze the product and make a threat modeling vector or make a memory map of this. Now you understand the firmware. If you are lucky, you got a firmware, you have a firmware also to do a further analysis, right? So now getting hands dirty. So dynamically I connected this IP phone, and the first thing is, of course, doing an nmap full port scan. Let's see what nmap gave me. Nmap told me it found a web server running on 8443. If you remember the recognition document, it says that you have HTTP and HTTPS access. We know it already, but here we are confirming it. Right now, I found that 7547 and 53 as a filter on this port. Okay, so 7547 is the TR69 protocol, which it's called the CWMPC protocol. Yeah, CWMPC protocol, which uses to manage the device remotely, and 53 is used for the DNS. Okay, and like giving IP address or giving what to say DNS to the device. And here you can see the OS gaze. Right, it says common platform enumeration. It looks like the OS is Linux, and the Linux kernel is 2.6, and the OS details, when it says in OS guess, the OS details is Linux kernel 2.6.17 to 2.6.36. So we have precise range which kernel it is running. Now, anyone knows what is the kernel version which is running now by Linux Foundation? I think it's 5. So it's like a decade old kernel which is running on this IP phone. Okay, so it's a very outdated device. It still looks new because they are selling it and they know that nobody is going to bother which kernel they are using. So if you search for this kernel version, you will find plenty of exploits, like a privilege escalation exploit, remote crash exploit. So all you need to do is run that exploit against the IP address of the IP phone. Okay, now, yeah, before that, in the setting up device, what we do, we connect one LAN cable to the IP phone, and we see if the IP phone is giving IP to us or not. And here, when we know that telnet is running, I tried here admin, and we know password was null. I just press enter, and here you can see the PZ box. It was manufactured in 2016, right? Built-in shell for BZ box, and yeah. So here you can see it is a root credential I have. So I hacked this device just by doing telnet and entering admin username, not a great stuff, right? But we just hack it like this. And if you see the OS gauge, here I type uname-a command, and output of that is 2.6.36. And here my nmap from the fingerprinting, it says it's 2.6.36 precisely, right? So now we hacked the device already. Now what more? But we are not just a hacker, and we are not going to satisfy with this. I have to build a whole exploit automated, right? So I try to access the web interface. Okay, here you go, the VoIP phones web interface. And in the web interface, on the 80 port, you can see username admin, password admin, and its login redirected to status basic.asp. So I am a hacker now. I hacked the product by entering admin, right? Just kidding. It's more dangerous than this. Okay, but can you notice something here or here? So I'll tell you what. Here, no X-frame option is set, so it's vulnerable for UI readdressing attack. So front end something different and back end something different, and I'll force you to click on something, and that something I'll show you what in next slide. So after doing some studies, I see that this device don't have anything which is unique. So if you see this request, it have only cookies here. It have only cookies, and to identify the something severe, like this request is genuine, we don't have request forgery token like a CSRF token inside it. And you see this request contains everything. So I'll just focus on what it is important. Okay. Uh, Here you see web remote legal IP. That parameter means that which device or which IP address is allowed to access the web interface of IP address, IP phone. And you can see it's 0.0.0.0.0. So that means anyone across this world can access the web interface of this. Okay, and you see the same for the telnet remote legal IP. Anyone in the world can do telnet to this. Okay, and you can set an NTP server for this. You can set the other NTP server. You can almost configure anything on this device from anywhere in the world with the simple username. Now the poor IP phone is at a very high risk because it have the username admin. It have access to whole world that anyone can come, log in, do changes, and say bye bye. Right? It's the worst thing now. Okay, and the last research I came to this, it's not just like entering the ID and I've got this command execution. Okay, I did a lot of study, did a lot of reverse engineering on this web server, and I found that in administration, when you go to diagnostic page, you enter the device destination and any command between this two backtick, it is going to execute the command. You see, I enter the ID command, and here you can see the ID of the device underlying operating system. Okay, now think as a hacker. Sorry. I think I really need to share this. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Now think as a hacker. Okay. You have URI addressing attack. You have CSRF, cross-site request forgery, and you have command execution. Okay. Now when you chain all these three vulnerabilities in one, it's the nightmare. I'll show you how. What we will do, we will make one fancy page, and that fancy page is something like you have to agree our organization's policies, otherwise you will get fired, and you will host it somewhere on the public domain, and in backend you add your command injection payload into CSRF, and you will make it look like a URI addressing attack, and you are hosting this on your web server, and now you broadcast this link to everyone, just like a spammer, like a mail spammer or with a SMS spammer. Okay, to all every corporate users, like we know that how corporate names are, like x.y at company.com or y.x at company.com or x dot first two letter last two letter. You make a list of email enumerator and make a link and send that your malicious web server link to every corporate user. Now, when the corporate user clicks on the link, it's done. It's done because your server will send a malicious request from the victim's computer to the IP phone, and your IP phone is compromised like this, like how this decent guy did this, like this only. You see here, we have updated the policy of organization. Kindly click on I agree for accepting terms. So I don't even give option of I disagree. Okay, this was the text you see. And when I clicked on I agree, you see the code was executed 10 times. So it was a loop for I in 1 to 10 do ID and semicolon done. Okay, and it executed 10 times. It was the code on my test page. So that's all for the getting hands dirty. Okay. So I hope we are with the flow. Just excuse me for a minute. Yeah. Now this session is even more boring and difficult. Okay. So fuzzing, reverse engineering, and exploit development. So in previous session, what we have seen, product, how to look at the product, how to understand, how to do recognition, and how to do active pen testing of the product, and how to exploit the product. Okay, but here you can see there is a lot of dependencies. First, your exploits needs to host on the proper server, which should be get uncaught by the defense mechanism at the companies. Okay. Second, user should be that fool to click on I agree to exploit the device. Third, your IP phone must be connected to your laptop in order to get exploited. Okay. So do you think the NSA or this big organ, oh, sorry, I don't want to take a name, or any spy agencies, world renowned spy agencies, do you think they will be dependent on this kind of lame exploits? No, they are like king of hackings. So they build their own exploit, zero touch, zero click, no user interaction, and gone. So let me show you touch base on this because it's a huge topic. Okay, so I did exploit development for this same product, and I am able to exploit it. So what to do? Like as a security researcher, how to get how to reach that level? How to get exploit done? Okay, so first thing is like you have to get the shell. How to get the shell? By exploiting web vulnerabilities, by identifying the hard-coded credential inside the firmware, by doing a document review. So in document review, you can search for SEC security, short form of security, because sometimes the user manual contains of 500, 600 pages. Okay. By doing algorithm reversing, by using default credential, and lastly, the reverse engineering binaries to get the shell. Now you got a shell. Now you might be wondering, yeah, I got a shell. Now why I have to put a lot of effort and why I have to do this stuff again? So we are a researcher, not just a noob hacker. So we have to make the whole device secure using every possible ways. And also we are hackers, pro hackers. So we have to, what it says, like uh, we have to find a more brutal ways to hack or more easy way without user enumeration or without user interaction. Okay, so let's get started. uh, yeah, so you can see this login page, admin and username. Okay, so first of all, fuzzing is just a process where we send some malicious input to the product and we will see what is the response of the product, and later we use that crash occurs by fuzz for further exploit development. Okay, here you can see I intercepted this request, simple request, and here is my first list, nothing fancy. A number of times. You see A 1, 2, A, 5 times A, 10 times A, 20 times A, 50 times, 200, 500, and 1000 times A. Okay, I use the sniper mode in burp suit, and I said fire this everywhere, wherever it is. And why on this admin screen? Because I like the unauthenticated exploit. So there is the less chance of getting dependent. So here I fired everything at every parameter, this A, and you can see something here. Want to zoom further, but yeah. Here you can see 20A I sent, 200 okay, web server says okay, I'm fine. 50A I sent, web server says okay, I can handle this too. 200, 500, 1000A, it's okay. But now what? Here if you see, when I send a 5000A, it got crashed. When I send 10,000 A, it got crashed. When I send the 20,000 input, it crashed. 10,000 it's crashed, and again it started. Now this is strange. If it is crashing, then why it is starting, right? If it is dead, it should be dead. So in embedded system, the watchmon is always running, which watches the processes which is running, and we can configure which process should keep running as it is important. Okay, so that watchman is aliving this character, and we are again killing it. Now let's see what happened in the background. So this is the device which we were fuzzing for this testing, and BOA is the name of web server, like IIS, Internet Information Services, or the Apache 2 kind of web server. So if you see BOA, it says extra read in the write body, read length 1 minus 1, and it is causing a sig sur. It is like the buffer overflow and dumping the core in /tmp. So we can configure the core path here, but yeah. But you see, again it started, again we first, again it crashed, and you see new PID here. What it was 69, and here you can see 70, and again it started, again we crashed it with the 71, right? So now we know that I have to be very careful when pressing escape. Yeah. Now we know when we force the device unauthorizingly, it is causing some kind of crash. So what to do now? Now we have to identify where it is getting crashed, right? So here is the yeah, okay. So here it was a request. When you send a 5000A in a password field, it is getting crash. So now I want to know at which location it is getting exact crash. Okay. So what I did, I generated the pattern of unique 5000 characters. Okay. And then I send it. It's not that I have written. It's generated by Metasploit pattern generator. Metasploit can generate a random pattern of whatever length you want. And then I connected this GDB to me, and I fired this. This is how we connect the GDB multi-arc, and using remotely. The target was remote, and I sent this request, and then I found this pattern and the crash here. So here you see the GDB server. I attached this process PID, and it was listening on 1337, my favorite port, every hacker's favorite port. And we see this is crash here, and you see some garbage here, and this garbage was generated by us. Okay, this is for the AAA attack. Okay, you remember 5000 times we send a. So this is the assembly level structure of the registers of the MIPS device, MIPS architecture. You see, we have we have R0, R8, R16, R24. So register lengths from R1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and again. So these are the registers and these are the values of the register. So this from A0 to A3, these four registers are your user control. Okay, this T0 to T8, these registers are getting controlled by the execution flow and not by the users. And from the register S0 to S4, uh, S3, yeah, four registers, even till S8, these registers are getting controlled by the what is say, you might be heard of EAP, where we stores the payload before the execution. So this kind of this is called the data holder registration, and this is the key registration. We called it RIP or PC register. So if you analyze the crash here, you will see that register this, register this, register this are in our control, and this one. And finally, the execution flow is also in our control. As you can see, it says bad valid address. Now, what I have to do to build an exploit? Oh, I think, yeah, we are about to finish, running out of time. Okay, and here you go. I'll show you the exploit and walk you through. Okay. So basically, the exploit development process is quite long. You have to identify at which level the crash occurs and how it does. Okay. This was the garbage which we find from our previous. What we say, the when we say in the metasploit pattern, you will know where this pattern is, and when you do pattern match, then it says, okay, this is at this location. Okay, and now we know where it is and we know which registers are in our control. We just have to copy this registers value in our exploit. Now this is the main exploit. Unlike previous, we have a dependency on user and we have to do some stuff. Okay, this is the real exploit which I developed. It says like Python post request, and in request the username is buffer overflow, and you see I calculated where the buffer overflow is getting happened. So it was getting occurred at the first register which we are able to control. It has the 1000 point, so at the thousands place. So what I do, I did a padding here of 999 A's. I send it padding till register T4, then I send the value of T4 to the register T4, and then again T7 the value of libc. Then again I need some padding, so I did B into 9 times, and then the register T6 was in our control, and then all this buffers was in our control, and finally the return address. So what I do, uh, the shell code, I stored it here from S0 to S3 in 4 register, and then I call this shell code after the buffer overflow using PC address. So my my exploit is just a click away. So I send it to broadcast anywhere with any IP range, and wherever my exploit get delivered, those all devices will be mine. Yeah, we are done now. Thank you for being a nice audience and listening to me. Hope you enjoy the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you for putting such an instructive workshop. It was amazing. We are confident that the audience would have understood a lot from this.
Yeah, thank you.
Now it's time for the Q&A session. So guys, feel free to ask any questions that you might have in the comment section.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question is from Khush Patil. How
Yeah.
how do you put Bob certificate in embedded devices just we do with web browser?
Yeah. So very nice question. What you do is, like, when you own the root over device, you just convert that certificate and put it into trust chain in etc security with the certificate name, and reload the cert store, and this way you can put the certificate in device. And mostly you will not find the encrypted traffic.
So our second question is from Ankur Rai. What are primary hardware components that make up an embedded system?
Like, what, from what point of view you are asking? From the attacker point of view, or from the hardware manufacturer point of view? I mean, you need, what tool you need to exploit this?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the one which I covered in the basics. So you just get API mote, you just get you get familiar with the electronic communication such as serial communication, UART communication, and SPI communication, and additional to this, like the JTAG communication. So these are the hardwares which you need, and I2C dumper and all those tools.
Okay, so the next question is from Uday Nishad. As
Yeah.
IoT is making us more vulnerable, shall we be limiting its use in our lives?
No. So the answer is, like, you see that Sachin Tendulkar's mutual fund ad. Everything is risk, right? We don't stop using it, right? We are working on this securing this product. We are working on the maturing this product. Like, petrol is the most flammable thing. Still, we use it every day, right? So we should use it. And yeah, but if you say, like from my experience, I have seen such a so many worse things. So, like Alexa listening to us, camera watching you to us, and the backdoors which I discovered previously by doing my research. So somewhere when your personal life comes in a picture, I say you should avoid even mobile also. That is the biggest weapon you can use against someone. So when you are having a personal moment, like you are enjoying with your family or your wife, girlfriend, so you should be staying away with from the smartphones. It's a good thing. Like,
Okay, so our
yeah,
next question is from Anushka Gaikwad. What are the major impacts of IoT in the healthcare industry?
yeah, that is the worst thing. I told you at the very beginning. I told you, like, but to standardize this and give you some, like, non-scary answers. When the healthcare industry manufactures a product, like which I have tested few, and few my colleagues have tested. So what they does is they get tested it from the global hackers, not from one. So unlike web application PT, like we hire some company from Monday and get it our website tested for security. what they do is like when they manufacture the critical product, which is inside your body, like pacemaker or insulin pump, they get it tested from all the hackers across the globe. So the risk to exploit this is quite a very low. But if that device get exploited, it's gonna be nightmare. You can kill someone, man. That is the biggest risk you have. And yeah, what firmware is used to decrypt the higher version of encrypted code? Yeah, it's a nice question, brother. We do white box. So to be very honest, we do white box testing. We ask vendor himself to get the unencrypted firmware, but uh, so most of the time, like not most of the time, sometimes you have to do the decryption of the firmware. So what we do is like if the firmware itself is encrypted from the very beginning of the product, then it's very difficult to decrypt it. So somehow you have to get the access to some level of file system. Then you try privilege escalation and get the root fs and dump the root fs, and from that root fs you try to see the logic, firmware upgrade logic, where you will see what it is validating before updating. So sometimes they encrypt the firmware with a passcode, so you brute force it, and while decrypting you can brute force it, right? Like wrote write a small decryptor from firmware in a Python, where it tries brute forcing and opening the firmware using multiple passwords. But when it is encrypted with a private key and public key, you have to get the private key from the device to your level. But when it comes to the real secure device, they stored it in a secure storage. So if you tamper with that, you're gone. So very less chance to get a decrypted firmware if it is properly encrypted.
So the next question is from Faizan Kalam. So
Yeah.
you have discovered more than dozen CVs. How long does it usually take you to test a device?
Yeah. So it depends on the priority. It depends on your day-to-day job. But I would like to give the answer of this question in a personal approach. So when I personally test this device, so when I test the corporate device, I don't get a CV. I get a CV only when I test the when I brought the device, when I purchase the device, I do the testing and then I report to vendor. Vendor says, okay, I'll patch this in the next build. When the patch is released after 90 days, then only I make it public. So you can see the CVs at securitybeast.github.io. Okay. So and few of those are not listed even because of the proprietary and violation of the principle. So it takes at least a month to test a device in a neat manner, not say uh, full manner, but in a neat manner, not say average testing. But if you say thorough testing, it's gonna take up to 2 months, because looks like audience have really enjoyed the show and getting the. So now let's say this is my next target. Okay, I'm going to test this in coming weeks or whenever I found the time out of for my profession. So what I have to look for the obvious attack surface, which is like network scanning, port connecting. Okay, then the additional attack surface by opening this device and connecting it via UART or via SPA or via JTAG, whatever communication, via whatever means it supports, I have to connect it, then dumping the firmware. So now firmware is the key part which decides the length of the testing, because the more you find the binaries, the more you have to reverse engineer it, and the reversing is the one which takes a infinite time sometimes. Sometimes I start reversing and I forgot why I was reversing this, and I find other vulnerabilities, and sometimes I'm just lost. So it depends on the size of the firmware, how many endpoints it have to attack, and uh, how big the binary is to analyze. And yeah, also I do monkey testing. It's like though I don't promote it, but also I do monkey testing. So I have a set in a box with the payloads and few fixed approach where like enumerate all the parameters and fuzz it with everything, whatever I have. So I do that monkey testing, and it's not about always reversing. Exploit development is also key task. So some vendors is like keep arguing with you, like, bro, you have demonstrated the crash, but not necessarily all crash belongs to the security crash. Sometimes it could be a normal quality crash. So Exploit development is the thing which takes time. But yeah, testing and like a conclusion, 1 to 2 months. I have to spend a lot on. I love spending a time with devices.
That was a really good question. So our next question is from Anaga Uparna. How can you connect LoRaWAN to microcontroller and transfer data to cloud? Can you explain on this?
LoRaWAN I didn't mention in my talk, but yeah, if you say the approach is like I did tested some kind of devices, some this kind of devices before. So if you see when you open the PCB of it, you will see two component on it. One is the product which is designed, the microcontroller, its job, its register, and microcontroller is even worse to test because it don't have any OS. It's just a microcontroller set of instructions which you have to test. But if you say there are some PCB lines, I don't have any chip open here, but let me show you something quickly. Oh my god. Okay, so what happened is there are some modems which are connected to the chip on the PCB level. So that modem have four connection pins, and that out of those four, two connection pins stands for debug RX and debug TX. Okay, it's not working. Sorry. Okay, so if you have seen the PCB, it has some like the modem section is different and the product section microcontroller section is different. Okay, and these two things are connected via PCB lines, and that modem have debug instruction and debug RX and debug TX. So you can directly connect to the modem using AT command and the connector whatever it is required, and then from the modem you can dump the packet, and then you try to decrypt the packet. Decrypt means it's just a MQTT, right? When it is saying LoRaWAN and microcontroller, I hardly believe that they even have capability of MQTT to send the data. So it's called the AT communication, AT communication. From that you can dump this. Yeah, sure, why not? Also, you can use the fiddler.
Okay, so the next question is from Khush Patil.
Yeah, I
Instead work
answered.
suit.
I answered.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's all. That are all the questions. Lawrence. Okay. So that brings us to the end of the Q&A session. I hope all your questions were answered. So now it's the quiz time, guys. The link to the quiz, which has a 10-minute time limit, is present in the YouTube live chat box. Give it your all, since the quiz will give you 50 points, which will help you to earn badges and will also help you to hold on to your spot on the leaderboard.
Also, if you have some additional question, feel free to drop me an email and secure. You can tweet me and we can connect. And don't expect the quick answers because I'm quite busy person. So I may take a long, but yeah, definitely I'm going to answer your queries. And I'm really happy to have such a engaging audience who takes interest and tries to understand the things. Lovely crowd.
Yes, sir.
Cheers to you.
Yes, sir.
And one thing I like to say, it's like today is my dad's birth anniversary, so big shout out to him. I lost him last year, and the moment I skipped the public speaking, so it was a good opportunity to start on his birthday. So I am back.
Okay. So guys, the quiz form has started. We only have 10 minutes.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I'm also glad to have you, that lovely crowd. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Have a great day, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Further, we'd like to express our gratitude to our sponsors for the support. Beginning with IEEE MTT-S, we are grateful to have them as our sponsors for the successful execution of our event. IMFS, our title sponsor. IMFS, founded in 1997, was the first institution in India to deliver expert coaching for examinations like the GRE, GMAT, SAT, TOEFL, IELTS, and TT. They provide professional counseling as well as a platform with a huge and active alumni network and strong links to over 500 institutes across the globe.
So next up, Aurora Coaching. Aurora Coaching is our educational partner. It is a crypto coaching service which seeks to educate and empower people and organizations about the world of cryptocurrency, so that both may approach it confidently.
Our streaming partner is StreamYard. On the StreamYard platform, you may broadcast over social networks directly from your browser. Before choosing the premium plans to gain access to more features, it provides a free option that you may test out.
So, with this, we'd like to conclude the session. We have included a link to the feedback form for all three of the sessions that happened today in the chat box, and completing it will earn you 10 points. So, we request our audience to make an effort to obtain as many points as possible in order to enjoy your benefits. We appreciate your participation and indulgence in this session and wish you all the best for the forthcoming sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.